Welcome to VNT. Please subscribe and hit the bell icon for more breaking updates. In 2025, American economic policy has taken a sharp, aggressive turn under President Donald Trump. The US now treats allies like Japan, South Korea, and the EU with the same hostility as rivals, imposing high tariffs and demanding one-sided concessions. This isn't classic protectionism, it's an economic offensive, forcing allies to subsidize US industry and relocate factories to American soil. Allies are pressured into signing unequal deals, losing their right to retaliate and committing to massive US-controlled investments. The message is clear. Loyalty to America no longer guarantees reward. Economic sovereignty is now secondary to US interests. This has triggered a crisis of confidence among America's closest partners, who now see their primary ally as their chief economic antagonist. Nations that once relied on the US for security and prosperity are being forced to reconsider their allegiances. The gauntlet has been thrown, and America's allies are scrambling to protect their futures from Washington's unpredictable new order. For Japan, the new US policy has been a shock to the system. Tokyo was forced into a deal with a crippling 15% tariff on exports to the US, with no right to impose counter-tariffs. Japan must also invest $550 billion in the US by 2029, with Washington controlling most of the returns. This transforms Japan from partner to captive financier, draining capital from its own economy and funding US competitors. The public backlash was immediate, leading to the collapse of Prime Minister Shigeru Ishiba's government. Japanese leaders are now openly discussing alternatives, including closer ties with other economic blocs. Trade negotiator Ryosei Akazawa hinted at a pivot towards BRICS, a dramatic shift for traditionally pro-American Japan. The costs of the US alliance are now so high that once unthinkable realignments are on the table. Japan's humiliation has sparked a national debate about its economic future. The search for alternatives is no longer theoretical, it's a matter of survival. As the US turns on its allies, the BRICS bloc is building a new global order. Expanded to include Egypt, Indonesia, Iran and others, BRICS Plus now represents over half the world's population and nearly half of global GDP. Their goal, a multipolar world, free from US dominance. Central to this is de-dollarization, reducing reliance on the US dollar and building alternative payment systems. BRICS nations are selling US Treasury bonds and promoting trade in their own currencies. At the 2025 Rio Summit, leaders made it clear, the world no longer wants a single economic emperor. BRICS is now a political project, building its own financial institutions and offering an alternative to the Western-led system. For countries like Japan, BRICS offers a compelling escape from American economic coercion. With its economic security threatened, Japan is now eyeing BRICS as a potential lifeline. Once unthinkable, this shift is driven by necessity. Japan's export-driven economy can't survive under US penalties. BRICS Plus offers vast markets hungry for Japanese technology and goods, providing a vital alternative to the US. The bloc's push for de-dollarization is especially attractive, allowing Japan to reduce its exposure to the weaponization of the dollar. By trading in yen, yuan, or other currencies, Japan could regain some monetary sovereignty. Behind the scenes, Japanese ministries and industry leaders are quietly exploring scenarios and opening back-channel talks. The risks of alienating the US are immense, but so are the dangers of remaining dependent. The resignation of a prime minister over a US-imposed deal has forced a national reckoning. Japan's flirtation with BRICS is now a serious consideration, born of economic desperation. The old certainties are gone, survival demands new alliances. Japan is weighing its options in a world where loyalty to Washington no longer pays. For Japan, a pivot towards BRICS is both an opportunity and a gamble. The rewards, access to booming markets, reduced vulnerability to US tariffs, and greater financial autonomy through a multi-currency system. Politically, it could elevate Japan as a bridge between the West and the global South. But the risks are daunting. Any move towards BRICS could provoke harsh retaliation from Washington, including threats to the US-Japan security alliance. For a nation reliant on the American nuclear umbrella, this is a terrifying prospect. Integrating with BRICS also means navigating difficult relationships with China and Russia, and reconciling different political values. There's a real danger that Japan could simply trade one hegemon for another. The path forward is a tightrope walk. balancing economic liberation against the risk of strategic isolation. Tokyo must weigh the promise of new alliances against the peril of losing its old ones. The stakes for Japan have never been higher. Japan's crisis is mirrored by America's other key allies. The EU and South Korea have faced similar US tactics: punitive tariffs, forced investments, and humiliating concessions. The EU was hit with 15% tariffs and compelled to invest over $600 billion in the US, while South Korea endured factory raids and worker detentions. These actions have left allies feeling powerless, their economic policies dictated from Washington. While Japan is cautiously exploring BRICS, Europe remains paralyzed, deepening its financial ties to the US in hopes of weathering the storm. South Korea, like Japan, is suffering under American tariffs, its export-driven economy under threat. India, meanwhile, has responded to US pressure by decisively pivoting towards BRICS, even restoring ties with China. The divergence is stark. Europe clings to the old order while Japan and India look for alternatives. America's allies are being forced to choose: cling to a punishing status quo or help build a new global system. The strategic sorting has begun. The world's economic map is being redrawn. The world is at a turning point, and Japan stands at the center of the storm. Trump's trade policies have shattered the illusion of a benevolent American-led order. For Japan, continued subservience to Washington means economic decline and lost sovereignty. The alternative, a pivot to BRICS, offers autonomy and access to new engines of growth, but comes with immense risks. Navigating this new landscape will require extraordinary diplomatic skill and courage. Ironically, America's aggressive tactics may end up accelerating its own decline by driving allies into the arms of its rivals. The choices made in Tokyo will shape not just Japan's future, but the emerging world order. Japan's next steps will define its place in the 21st century.